play. Let me just present to you so you can see. Alright, do you guys all see that? Everybody can see. Alright, so yeah, we're on the chapter says permission to play, so the page is going to vary depending on how the book looks. So you can just look at this for now. This is like the 5th chapter. Alright, so again, these chapters are super short, so we're going to read a few of them, and then you guys will have a couple questions to answer on Socrative. If you don't understand something or if you're confused, just make sure you ask. Alright, so the very last thing that happened in the story was the main narrator, Billy Joe, was asked if she wanted to perform in a piano recital. Okay, so that's basically what we left off at. Again, this is happening in the 1930s during the Depression, and actually even worse than the Depression, she's living in the Texas Panhandle, which is experiencing like severe drought, which means there's no water. And you have like crazy things like dust storms happening. Alright, permission to play. Sometimes when Ma's busy in the kitchen, or scrubbing, or doing wash, I can ask her something in such a way I annoy her just enough to get an answer, but not so much that I get a no. Right? So I'm sure you guys probably have tactics, right? Whenever you want something from your parents, you know who to ask and how to ask it so that you get the answer that you want, right? So she's basically saying that right there. She's asking her mom in a way so that she gets the answer that she wants. That's a way I've found of gaining what I want, by catching Ma off guard, especially when I'm after permission to play piano. Right out asking her is no good. She always gets tested about me playing, even though she's the one who truly taught me. Anyway, this time I caught her in the slow stirring of biscuits. Her mind on other things. Maybe the baby growing inside her, I don't know. But anyhow, she was distracted enough. I was determined enough. This time I got just what I wanted. Permission to play at the palace. Right, so again, she basically is trying to find the best opportunity to ask her, and she does, and she winds up getting what she wants. So she's going to be able to perform. Again, this is January 1934. On stage. So notice that the author purposely changes the way that the format, the structure of the writing is. Notice it's a little bit different here. When I point my fingers at the keys, the music springs straight out of me. Right hand, playing notes sharp as tongues, telling stories while the smooth, buttery rhythms back me up on the left. Folk sway in the palace aisles, grinning and stomping, out of breath, and the rest eyes shining, fingers snapping, feet tapping. It's the best I've ever felt, playing hot piano, sizzling with Mad Dog, swinging with the Black Mesa boys, or on my own, crazy, pestering the keys. That is heaven. How supremely heaven playing piano can be. Right, so it's probably structured this way to kind of emphasize the way that she's actually playing, right? So she's like playing keys. So the words are structured to kind of like show almost like the like I don't know, like the high joyous nature of her playing the piano, going left and right and left and right and left and right. Right, so it's kind of like emphasizing how the whole thing felt to her. Right, so she's obviously super passionate and into the way that she plays. So obviously everything went really well with her playing that piano. Birthday for FDR. Does anybody know who FDR is? I think I went over this once before because they mentioned him earlier. Who's FDR? I think I did mention him. I mentioned him something because his name is super familiar in my brain. Yeah, Franklin Delano. So actually, yeah, so FDR was actually mentioned in it was mentioned in Bell Prater when we read. So remember, FDR was a president, probably the most popular president of all time. He was elected, was it 4 times or 3 times? Basically, he would have kept getting elected. He was that popular. Um, Birthday for FDR. I played so well on Wednesday night. Arlie put his arm across my shoulder and asked me to come and perform at the president's birthday ball. Ma can't say no to this one. It's for President Roosevelt. Not that Mr. Roosevelt will actually be there, but the money collected at the ball, along with the balls all over the country, will go in the president's name to the Warm Springs Foundation, where Mr. Roosevelt stayed once when he was sick. So again, remember, Roosevelt had polio. Polio was a disease that affected a lot of people and killed lots of people in like the 1930s. Um, Luckily, somebody came up with a vaccine for it. But again, it was super, super awful. A lot of people like died from it. Um, yeah, it was just an awful disease. But now we have a vaccine for polio, so nobody gets polio anymore. Someday, I plan to play for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself. Maybe I'll go all the way to the White House in Washington, D.C. In the meantime, it's pretty nice. Arlie asked me to play twice for Joyce City. All right, so again, she's being asked again to play because she did such a good job. So now she's going to be performing for this like charity. All right, not too much to ask. We haven't had a good crop in 3 years, not since the bounty of 31. So crop meaning like just growing. So these people are farmers. So basically, like the farm's been awful, obviously because of the fact that there's no water. We're all whittled down to the bone these days. Even Ma, with her new round belly. So if they're all whittled down to the bone, basically it's just kind of showing that they're like super skinny because they have no food because the crops aren't growing. But still, when the committee came asking, Ma donated 3 jars of applesauce and some cured pork and a feed sack nightie she'd sewn for our coming baby. So what does this tell you about the mother doing this? What does that tell you about the mother?
She likes to help other people.
Yeah, exactly right. So she's very like helpful. So this family is not doing so well. How do I know that? Because they're all skinny, right? They mentioned the mom's skinny even though she's pregnant. But even though that's the case, the mom still gave away applesauce, pork, and actually the last one's probably even the most kind of like amazing. So the mom's been sewing something for the baby, and she literally gave that away, right? So it kind of shows that this family is giving and not selfish at all. That they kind of, um, are kind. And again, this was a time period not too unlike ours now, though. I would say like nowadays people have like there's things nowadays to like help people out more than there were in the past. But this was like a time period where people were suffering and struggling, so people were a lot more in need of things. All right, Mr. Hardley's money handling. It was Daddy's birthday, and Ma decided to bake him a cake. There wasn't money enough for anything like a real present. Ma sent me to fetch the extras with 50 cents that she'd been hiding away. Don't go to Joyce City, Billy, she said. You can get what we need down Hardley's store. I slipped the coins into my sweater pocket, the pocket without the hole, thinking about how many sheets of new music 50 cents would buy. Mr. Hardley glared when the Wonder Bread door banged shut behind me. He squinted as I creaked across the wooden floor. He hardly was in the habit of charging too much for his stale food, and he made bad change when he thought he could get away with it. I squinted back at him as I gave him Ma's order. Mr. Hardley's been worse than normal since his attic filled with dust and collapsed under the weight. So what did she describe so far about Mr. Hardley? What kind of person is he so far in terms of her description of him? What kind of person is Hardley? You got to think about what he does. What does this guy do with food? And what does he do with change? And what does that tell you about him? you saying something, Raimi? Or are you just unmuted? Because I cannot hear you. What does this guy do with food? And what does he do with change? It's right in front of me. You guys can see my screen, right? What does he do? Ooh, Jonathan, what do you think, Mr. Perez? Are you there, Jonathan? I'm not hearing people. Are you talking, Adrian? Because I can't hear you. Maybe I have to come
Yeah, I
back.
was about to talk. He's charging way too much for the food.
Yeah, exactly, right? So what does that tell you about your character if you do that? You're charging too much for food. What does that tell you about your personality?
That they pay too much for food.
Yeah, so what does that tell you about... If I have a store and I start charging people more than it's worth, what does that tell me about me? What does that tell? What does that reveal about your character?
Maybe poor.
Not that you're poor. It's just basically
No.
it's just the wrong thing to do, right? So you're just not a very nice person. So if I charge you more than you should be charged um, for food that's not even good, right? It says stale food. So if stale food is food that's going like rotten, and then he's also giving you bad change, which means basically wrong change. So basically, he's stealing from people, and then he's charging people for stuff that's not even good and too much. So obviously, not the nicest guy in the world. And then you find out at the end that I guess all these dust storms are causing his roof to collapse. So now he has to fix his roof. So he's probably even more greedy than he's used to. He hired folks for the repairs and argued over every nail and every little minute. So again, that's also showing that he's kind of like cheap. The whole place took shoveling for days before he could open it again, and some stock was so bad it had to be thrown away. So again, you're also seeing that he's losing money because when the roof collapsed, some of the stuff that he sold had to get thrown away. The stove clanked in the corner as Mr. Hardley filled Ma's order. I could smell apples, ground coffee, and peppermint. I sorted through the patterns on the feed bags, sneezed dust, blew my nose. When Mr. Hardley finished sacking my things, I paid the bill. And tucking the list in my pocket along with the change, I hurried home so Ma could bake the cake before Daddy came in. But after Ma emptied the sack, setting each packet out onto the oilcloth, she counted her change, and I remembered with a sinking feeling that I hadn't kept an eye on Mr. Hardley's money handling, and Mr. Hardley had cheated again. So she recognizes this guy as kind of like a little bit of a thief and kind of nasty. And the mom, told her like watch out for him, but she forgot to do that. So now, what is she fearing? What is she afraid of? What is she afraid of? Yeah, Perez, go ahead, buddy.
Losing a bit of money.
Yeah, exactly. So she's thinking, oh crap, this guy probably ripped me off. So while Ma mixed the cake, I walked back. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Mr. Money's handling, and Mr. Harley had cheated again. Only this time he cheated himself, giving us 4 cents extra. So now the mom realizes this guy didn't rip her off. The opposite happened. He gave us too much change back. So while Mom mixed the cake, I walked back to Mr. Harley's store, back through the dust, back through the Wonder Bread door. This is repetition. And thinking about the secondhand music in a moldy box at the shop in Joyce City Music I could have for 2 cents a sheet. I replaced Mr. Harley's overpayment on the counter and turned to head back home. So the mom realized she got too much change back. So what did she make her daughter do? What did she make her daughter do? Yeah, go ahead, Perez.
Give back the 4 cents.
Yeah, exactly. So she had to go back and give back the 4 cents. So as she's going back, she's realizing like, oh, I wish I could use this money to buy more music. Right? She wants to buy like they keep saying sheets of music. So if you've ever I don't know if you guys have ever done this in music class or if you had music classes, right? So music is written on notes on sheets, right? So she's wishing that she could buy these sheets so she could probably play more on her piano. Obviously, she can't because the mom's making her give the money back. Mr. Hardley cleared his throat, and I wondered for a moment if he'd call me back to offer a piece of peppermint or pick me out an apple from the crate. But he didn't, and that's okay. Ma would have thrown a fit if I'd taken a gift from him. Right, so she was hoping maybe she had like a little gift for giving the money back, but the guy didn't do anything. He just kind of like took it. All right, so now you have questions to do on Socrative based off of this chapter. So start that. When you're done, you're going to continue working on your infographic. Okay, so make sure that you keep taking notes if you need to do that. When you're done, you should be working on the actual infographic. And we'll